A boom boom ba ba dum bum ba boom bum ba boom bum boom ba ba dum boom boom ba boom bum ba boom bum.
Huh? Yes. Where is it?
Oh, there it is.
Emoticons. We're no ladybug.
Yeah, you can drop those in as well.
Smiley hearts.
Where did we finish
With a little dolphin.
Friday? Do you know? Friday? Where did we finish Friday?
6 lines from the top of the second paragraph on page Zion. Shvilim, Musivos, Brochim.
6 lines from the top of the main
That's
line.
where we finished Friday?
The second paragraph.
Page Zion.
Really?
Oh, we got the Hulu on Friday?
We got to the Chulin and the dot, or the comma.
Okay.
So we're done with that. Yeah, yeah, okay. So we are starting, we said, on page Zion, and that's at the end of the 6th line of the second paragraph, second section. On that page, the line begins with Shvilim, Sibes Udrochim V'Tik, Yislapshe B'Dala, Madreges Elohim. We discussed the principle of Halos Man, which will now be discussed in greater detail. All right, so what we quoted from Zeir, the Chodesh explanation, that the Amshochas Ha'oyim Ilmailo, even for the higher level of worlds, is dependent on the Torah mitzvahs on the Hamshachah from Milmata, because Oil requires that there should be a pathway for it, and there should be a tik, it should be a container. Now they're going to explain what that is.
Tik, we can just think Kaylee, or should think something different?
Tik is like a
Kaylee.
A holder.
Al-Azman is the principle we defining now?
No, last one is cut on Friday.
Arousal from below.
Arousal from below. Yesh loymar shezeh mishikosa b'teirair, that this is essentially similar to what it says in Teirair b'habiyur d'vikibel ha'yehudim. This is the place, the Maimer where it is discussed. In the Kibbel HaYehudim is a Maimer in Teirair, and then there's a Biur, a section that explains further that Maimer. In that Biur, this is discussed the following. So it says, Hamshoch as ha'oiros, that the drawing down of oiros, who ali de hakelim dafka, is accomplished via the kelim. Exclusively, dafka. For K'meshe Kosev, now the Pasuk says, Ein oid keli. There is no more keli. This is one of the great miracles that occurred by Elisha, and with enormous, loaded with teachings. The story is that there was this woman whose husband was a tzaddik and was killed, and she came to Elisha and she said that she doesn't have a means to support her family, And Elisha said to her, he asked her what she has in the house, and she said that she has one jug of oil. So he said, you should go around all your neighbors and borrow as many kelim as you can. And then, when you gather all the kelim, lock the door with your children inside, and start pouring the oil from the jug into the kelim. And they had this process, so to speak, this a line occupation. And the children would hand her the keli, and she would pour, and then she continued to pour. And then, when there was no more kelim, the oil ceased. The oil stopped. And then, with this oil, she was able to support her family and pay her debtors and so forth. So there is that's the last moment where she said, okay, where is the next keli? And the children said to her, no more keli. Ain't no keli. And then Vayamid Hashemen, and the shemen stopped, ceased to form. So this is a clear demonstration of the principle that the oil is comes down only when there's a keli. And what is the principle behind that? Why is the oil dependent on the keli? And that is mipnei sheho'oil tivoy lalus l'maylo, because the nature of oil is to rise upwards, and to incorporate it in the source. This is the nature of oil. And we should be able to now relate to this statement a little bit intelligently, because we always explain that the union of oil is actually the moir, actually the etzem. And etzem, because it's an etzem, therefore it has oil. Oil is actually the statement that this is an etzem. That's what oil is. And we discussed in many angles. And therefore, the oil to be recognized outside of the etzem, there has to be a reason for it. Otherwise, the oil stays put in the etzem.
There has to be a reason. There has to be some achiza, some.
That's right. There has to be a reason why. What draws the oil to a functional state? Otherwise, it is entirely representative of the etzem. As we said just a moment ago, it's not just representative of the etzem. The oil is a statement that this is an etzem. So if it goes further away from the etzem, it loses that statement. Therefore, the oil is constantly tivei lalus l'mayla. The teva of oil is to rise upwards to the etzem. They call it imkoyre. And therefore, in order that there should be the hamshoch of the oil, that the oil should be nimshach outside and have a functional effect, that can only occur, and that is done through the keli, the via the keli. The keli, as we are going to discuss in a moment, solicits the oil. It gives the oil a reason to emanate and to illuminate into the keli. And again, this is what we're learning now, so be patient a bit. And that is the point that we discussed before, that Torah nikras derech, that the Torah is called derech, and we explained derech, that it is it means to say that it is a pathway via which the oil is nimshach, and this is the pathway via which the oil is nimshach to all everywhere, in all pathways and all destinations. The Torah is called derech. Why is that? Sha'adei ha'Torah, because through Torah, nasim, drochim, v'kelim, there are affected pathways and kelim and receptacles. Again, here is going to be opportunity to discuss kelim in a more elaborate manner. Shabahem diye hamshochas eirin soy baru, where into which there should be, it should come the hamshocha of eirin soy.
We're going to speak about the difference between Droch and Bekaila.
Huh?
We're going to speak about the difference between Derech and Kaila.
Rabbi Paltiel? Hello?
Just a minute. It's really the same thing. Yes, Baruch.
Maybe this is the question that was just asked. We just said about Torah. The Torah is the thing that effectuates these channels and Kalim, and previously, basically, it sounds like we said this was the Kav. So we're making these equivalent to each other.
Okay, let's hold up on that. So, okay, so the Torah is called derech. Okay, again, we're in the middle of explaining a principle that oir tivoy lalas l'maylo, that the nature of oir is lalas l'maylo and v'nikam and l'kol bim koiro, because in fact oir is not a separate entity from the mokir. It is the atzmius, the essential aspect of the mokir. We explained one time what is the principle of oir, and I said that oir is present. Oir is present only in an etzem, in an atzmi, and the point in that is that an atzmi means that it is it has this truth to the extreme. The truth is such that it does not recognize, it does not allow, or it says that nothing else can possibly be. Let's make that truth. Like we say the sun is an etzem behiri. That's a quote from Chassidus. Etzem behiri. What is the principle in this etzem behiri? That darkness is not something that sun can possibly recognize as a reality. It negates that possibility totally. Because that this is what sun is, etzem behiri. Therefore, wherever sun is present, there is automatically an elimination of darkness. Because it doesn't recognize that whole phenomenon. So this is the principle of oil. Oil represents an atzma, an etzem is not limited to its own place. Etzem it does not allow for anything other than what the etzem is. So it's not limited to its own place. Wherever it is, everything becomes what the etzem is. like we say, a melech. A melech is be'etzem a melech. So a melech, automatically, wherever his country spreads out, that's where he is. Nothing can be outside of his reign.
Could we define an etzem as being everywhere all the time?
Again, let's leave this one. It won't help you. So therefore, this is dinyan ha'oir. Being that this is dinyan ha'oir, so therefore the oir stays put with the etzem. Tivur las l'mayla. What does it have to do with darkness? If it is part and parcel of oil. Tivur las l'mayla. Why is there the oil hashemesh in the dark world? The reason there is oil hashemesh in the dark world is because it transforms the darkness into oil. Therefore, it incorporates that in the shemesh. But if there is not an opportunity to transform, if anything, on the keli for the oil, then the oil stays put with the shemesh. There is nothing in the shemesh that compels it to say, "Oh, I have oil." Zero. It stays put where it is. Where is the whole phenomenon that it has oil? Is only because there is a darkness that solicits the oil, and once that the shemesh should be, like we said, the shemesh hamoyer hagodol memsheles bayim, it rules the day, and then it comes and then becomes part and parcel of the shemesh. This is that there is keli, and without the keli, he's not interested at all. There is no way.
What happened there? The darkness as it seems to pull for light. Otherwise the light would not come.
Not only the darkness. The darkness in a manner that is able to benefit from the oil. To join the shemesh. If it cannot, if it's not allocated for it, then it's not going to be there.
I wasn't sure I understood why the light stays with the etzem. You said this is connected to the fact that the etzem doesn't know any darkness whatsoever. The etzem is only, etzem transforms everything to what the etzem is. What's the connection between that and the light staying with the etzem? I'm not picking that up.
The whole presence of oil is a statement of etzem. It cannot be separate from the etzem.
So when it goes into the darkness, that's like separating from the etzem?
Yes. So the only way it can be is because there is a cadence and discipline trying to bring the etzem into this cave.
The oil is not like a melech that wants to keep spreading out. It's not like...
He wants to keep spreading out only when there is a cave. Ein melech b'lo yam. If there's no army, that's what it's doing. This is
what we said before, that Atzmus wanted to have oil, that Atzmus wanted when there's a
You didn't say that yet. That we said the previous time. You have to get to that yet.
It doesn't conquer, in other words. It's not like a conquering melech that just goes out and tries to take over.
No. Again, I mean, you said that's to solicit my mind looking. And this is essentially, I'm trying to stay online so that we would be focused, stay focused. You know? Otherwise, we could go all over.
Okay.
The oil comes only because there's a keli which it can transform into oil. This is why, essentially, in our little metaphor, sunlight becomes light when it hits an object. When it is traveling through space, it doesn't function as it's not there. In space, you see the sun, no way. Because it stays with the sun. Why does it have to be outside? So Teva Ha'ir is Lalis L'mayla. We call him Keli. And in order to affect Hamshachas Ha'ir, that is only the Keli has that capability of Mamshi Dior. That is, now this explains the principle that Torah is called derech. What's mean derech? Sharidei ha-Torah, because via the Torah, through the Torah, nasim drochim v'kelim, are effectuated drochim pathways, and kelim shebahem ti hamshachas in Yisrael, via through which will be the hamshachah in Yisrael.
Can I ask a quick question?
Huh?
Can I answer just a quick question on what you said a moment ago? And maybe if you want, just not skip it. But where exactly does the air get this teva from? Because the moyer doesn't have it, and everything that the air gets, it gets from the moyer. Right?
The moyer doesn't have it.
The moyer doesn't have the teva. Meaning to say, the Indian of law is a mindful.
That's why I started to explain. The oil has that teva because that's what the oil is. Oil is moyer.
But we just said that the Meir doesn't have the idea that it needs. The whole idea of La'alis L'mayla is that it needs a keli to have an achiza in. Otherwise, it goes back to its source. But we said the Meir doesn't need a keli.
No, you need the. Okay. No, that's not what we said. Tibur La'alis L'mayla is mitzadem because it's connected to the Meir. Period. And therefore it will not be out. But if there is a keli, the keli can be mamshel. But without the keli, there is no reason for the oil to be. The oil doesn't want to be. The oil is part of the moyer.
Right, Paltiel?
And the reason that keli is mamshel the oil, it has been explained from the motion of the sun. Because when there's a keli, the keli becomes part of the amoyer. Amoyer hagol memshal by name. Yes, Baruch.
So, in this discussion, you used the mashal of the melech. So this is like Ayin melech b'loy am. In other words, there has to be an am to be solicit the melech.
Right, I mentioned that, yeah. By melech, it's the same thing. The melech is not mispashit unless there is an am. There's no am. The whole malchus stays within the yetz.
The am has to be a keli to solicit the malchus.
Right. Do you understand what your misinterpretation was?
I think so.
You said that the oil needs keli, but the oil doesn't need one keli. So where does the oil get them? The oil doesn't need keli.
They also doesn't want kalim.
No.
The kalim want oil.
Oh, it doesn't. The oil is for Tibur La'alis L'mayla. But Keli can listen.
And in that respect, it's an accurate representation of the nature of the Meyer. That the nature of the Meyer is it's etzem behiri. It doesn't need anything, and so to the eretz doesn't want anything. Doesn't want to be anywhere. It wants to be in that place as well. It's only mitzad the kelim that they want that they elicit it.
And the reason that Keli can elicit the oil is because the Keli becomes part of the oil. The Keli, by the oil, is effectuated to become like the oil.
What?
Well, oil, lit up, light, right? Connected to the oil, yes.
It's an
Bottled to the
extension.
oil.
So when we say Memshelas B'yeh, we're not saying it rules in the day, but it rules with the day. By function of the daylight, it extends its rule to further than the rule of the Shemesh itself.
So it says Bayoy or Hayoy? I think it's a Hayoy. Okay. Let's continue. Okay, so this is
Sorry, before you continue, so let me just ask this Indian of Shalas Ayin, what's the keli that solicits this oil?
the dark world.
The dark world solicits oil. In what sense does a dark world solicit oil?
Because it's dark.
It's soliciting means actively looking for it, right?
What?
Soliciting means, like Yisrus, it means it's actively soliciting it.
Yeah, because when the light is drawn into there, it becomes part of it. It's completely bottled to it. It accepts it and becomes part of the whole
I was talking about the Shabbos. So we say in Shabbos.
Hayyad.
Yeah, I was talking about what we say on Shabbos.
Yeah, doesn't say Hayyad. Yeah, I know.
I'm just saying, why it would seem that the dark world is happy to just sit and be dark. What is it looking for light?
No, the dark world is not like when we discussed the human being touch versus sight. We pointed out that an interesting phenomenon that the animal, when it looks at an object, it actually experiences how it feels to touch the object. A human being is just the opposite. When he touches an object in the dark, he actually projects what it looks like. Because the truth of the object in terms of what it represents, the creator, is in what it looks like, not in what in its physical. In other words, it's a spiritual presence rather than its physical presence. And yes, it wants that this truth of it should be visible, should protrude, and should be recognized.
So it's really the human being in the world that is looking for light.
The human being appreciates it, but the whole world wants it. The whole world, when the Rebbe created light, there was no human being in the world. But then the world came to light. I want to show that this is the Rebbe's world. The human being is the one who he is the keli for that. Okay, back to where we started. That this is the meaning of the Torah is called Derech Shalidei HaTorah Nasim Drochim V'Kelim, because through the Torah are effectuated Drochim V'Kelim Shebahem Ti Hamshachas in Yisrael Boro, within which the pathways and the Kelim where the Hamshach of Yisrael should come.
So
Or
the Torah creates the kelim?
right, the Torah to mitzvahs creates a kelim. Ulefi Eifen HaKelim, and then Ulefi Eifen HaKelim, in a manner what the Kelim, what kind of Kelim they are, Kahu Hamshochas Oir. The oil fits perfectly with the Kelim. There is no excess. Bahainu, which means to say, the lefi oy von ha mitzvah yeh hamshochas ha'oir. According to what this mitzvah is, this is how the hamshochas ha'oir through this mitzvah will be. The mitzvah is, in fact, this is the keli for the hamshochas ha'oir elagi into the world. The harei, since that kol mitzvah hi hamshocha miyuchedes b'fnei atzma. Each mitzvah is a specific hamshocha. The gam, and so therefore the hamshocha is suited completely to that particular mitzvah. The gam, and also there's another aspect in this hamshocha that defines how the hamshocha is going to be. The fi eif and habitul shebesek hateira, in a manner to the extent that there is the beetle in eisek hateira v'kiyim hamitzvahs, in the engaging in teira and kiyim hamitzvahs. This is how the oil is going to be nimshach. The oil is nimshach exclusively when there is a keli, and a keli is only when the keli is bottled to the oil. The yikir in hatero mitzvahs, for the principle in of tero mitzvahs who liyos bebchinas bitul davka, that the Torah mitzvah should be in a state of bitul davka, and we'll discuss this in a moment. This bechinas bitul davke, vali deizeh nase keli leinesoy baruhu, and thereby, as a result of the beetle in the mitzvah, in the keli, this is how it becomes a keli leinesoy baruhu. The principle of Torah mitzvah is bechinas beetle. I don't think it needs elaboration, but just to make the point. When one learns Torah and he knows the halacha, and on what basis that you know the halacha is that it makes sense in seichel anushi, and therefore he accepts the halacha because it makes sense. You have to give tzedakah. It's a wonderful thing to give tzedakah. Of course, you have to be concerned about your fellow man. In the years of depression, nobody here is familiar, me neither, Emerson. In 1930s, there was a very powerful depression. Everybody is always talking about, oh, this is a depression level unemployment. It was mamash in depression. What was the depression? Depression was not that there were no resources, there was no money. The cycle, the economic cycle stopped. What is the economic cycle? The economic cycle is, if there's a factory that produces cars, there has to be people who are going to buy the cars. The factory has all the money to produce the cars, but nobody buying it, so the whole thing stops. And this is what happened for whatever reason. So one of the things, Roosevelt then came in and made a lot of changes. One of the things that he argued in his presentation, in his idea of changing a policy, was he says like this precisely this. You have to jumpstart the economy. How do you jumpstart the economy? He went and created projects, building, infrastructure, just not because it was necessary. It is useful, but that wasn't the thing. But because this jumpstart the economy, so people began to work. They began to work. They had money. They began to buy the products, and that started the engine, the economic engine. So therefore, you have to give the poor money in order that they should buy your products. Makes a lot of sense. But this is not tzedakah. Tzedakah is a mitzvah in the Torah. So if you give tzedakah because of so to speak, of simple worldly reasons, it makes sense. But that's not tzedakah. Tzedakah is the pshat. You give tzedakah because it says in the Torah, the Rebbe says you should give tzedakah. Whether it makes sense to you or it doesn't is not the criteria.
So it doesn't say that if a person gives tzedakah, you should say he said me that it's still tzedakah?
Yeah. Yeah, but he's given tzedakah. He wants to do a mitzvah. He wants the reward for the mitzvah, but the mitzvah itself he does because it's a mitzvah. So that's the mitzvah. The mitzvah, the iker in the mitzvah is the beetle. What's meant the beetle? To recognize that this is a mitzvah that the Eibusher gave, and this is how the Ayin Sof is shoyre in that mitzvah. And the same thing is in Torah. In Torah, this is even more concealed, because we learn and things make sense, and we tend to learn according to the fact that it makes sense to me. It has to be understood that this is a seichel eliki, this is not seichel emushi. Seichel emushi is able to relate to it to some degree, but that is not the end. That is not the principle behind it. And the Rambam says it is imperative that it is appropriate to find reasons for all the mitzvahs, but never to say that this is exhausting the whole of the mitzvah. It's useful so that because mitzvahs have to relate to human beings, have to be accepted, but not to say that this is the exhaustive explanation of the mitzvah, and this is where it ends. Seif tam, that's also seif hatam. There has to be the union of beetle in the mitzvah, otherwise basic atero mitzvah, otherwise there is no hamshachas in itself. Okay. In von der Mitzvah ist es Beetle Davke, weil der sehr nass im Kelim lehren so ibar. Thereby you create Kelim lehren so. Because you're making Kelim according to the design that was provided, so that Ayin Sof Elokus will be able to show it in this Kelim. The Ayin Sof Ein oi shoyre el ba meshe bottle el vizborch. This also we'll have to discuss a little bit. It's obvious, but it's worthy of discussion. That Ayin Sof cannot rest except there, that which is bottle ale of his body, a bottle to him. This is self-evident and clearly understandable. If you make a keli, and the keli is a finite finite keli, whatever an action you learn, and everything that we do is very limited, very there is no possibility that it should bear Ayin Sof. How is it Ayin Sof? Ayin Sof relate to that keli? How can it be said that in this keli there is Ayin Sof, there is Atmos Olakus right into this keli, which is so finite and so limited. So there are two principles in this. One is that there is the beetle in the keli, bottle. In other words, this keli was made not based on the on what I think I should do, the way I prefer, the way I understand the world, and this is the world that I want to live in, and this is where I want Elokus to come. That's not a keli. It's a keli that is designed according to what is instructed. This is the way you have to make a keli. That's the first thing. And then there is the Indian that the beetle is bottle a love. Bottle a love means that it's not merely done in conformity with the instructions of the Torah. This principle, which I want to explain, is similar to what we discussed recently a lot, that in sunlight there is the light, because this is an etzem behiri, the light element, and then there is the energy that emanates from the sun that becomes a mitzias unto itself and hits an object because it's an energy, and this energy is deflected from the object because it's an object. When two objects hit, and one deflects from the other, and as a result of that, as we said, even the camera can also see the object. Doesn't see the object. It has the effect of the deflected light. So it's done completely according to the rules of light, but it becomes a mitzias unto itself. In this mitzias, that light is not related back to the sun. It's a mitzias by itself. It doesn't even have the implication of light. We point out that there is, even at that level, there is a certain union that the human being senses, but as a bichlal, it's a physical light, physical energy. The same is true regarding mitzvahs. Even if one learns and does a mitzvahs according to the rules, perfectly according to the rules, there has to be the union that bottle is not the beetle to accept the directives of the Torah, but to accept the directives of the Torah because this is the Meibush state and a love that he is receiving it from Hashem. That way, then he becomes a keli for Ayin Sof, for godly light, for godly presence. Otherwise, because the Torah has been given into the world, he can take the Torah as it is in the world, as it fits into the worldly parameters, and then there is no Hamshachas Ayin Sof. So these are two principles. The beetle has to be, because otherwise he's going to go altogether off the track. If he wants to interpret according to his own interpretation, then he's off the track. He's going to completely misunderstand what it says in Shulchan Aruch, what it says. Like we're learning here, he can misinterpret very easily. So you have to stay put and focus in, make sure that you understand correctly what is being said. Then there has to be the Indian that where am I receiving it from? Not because it fits into my thinking, it fits into the world, but because it is Elov. In other words, like we said in the case of the sunlight, that what we are receiving, this is a metaphor, and the sun has a certain function, but in terms of emotion, there is nevertheless the senior, like we say, by day is a different period than at night. Not because I can see across the street, but because it's a different period. It's a period of light. To relate to light per se, not simply because it serves functionally for me to be able to walk around and do what I need to do. That is a different kind of beetle than using light for navigation.
For using light for
Navigation, for getting around.
what was the other light? You're not using it for navigation. You're using it for what?
You're not using it for anything. You just join the period of light. Then you are relating to the fact that there is a luminary that is Be'etzem Nehiri, and you are in that state of light. You're not in a state of darkness at all, you're in a state of light. The reason that korbanos, for example, were permitted to be brought by day and not by night is not because we're able to see your way around, but because that's the time for korbanos. And other times you can't bring korbanos. And the same thing by Yasin, the tefillas and all that, everything has it because that's the right time. So this beetle is a deeper beetle than the fact that I'm conforming according to the prescription as it is designed and should be done. This is a beetle that says that I'm doing Torah mitzvahs because I want to, because I'm a Yid and I want to connect to the Beis, to the giver of the mitzvahs, to the, not to the truth as it is recognized in the world, but to the truth as it is in itself, in its own place. This is the Ayin, this is the Eid Ayin that we spoke even last night. You know, the Moir is something which only Yidden have connection to. Okay, so these are the words over here. Eresav can only dwell where that's where in Bertel a love, and now we understand why that is. It's not because it's such a great oil, and if you're going to misunderstand. If without detail, you're going to go into you're going to misunderstand what's the instructions. You have to be careful how you get the instructions. That's also true, but that's not the point. The central point. The point is that there is both a love. You're not doing it on your own at all. Not doing it in order to build the world. You're doing it in order that He should be there. Then He can be shown there. Then He can be shown there. V'yalkein, and therefore, alidei bitul hayesh be'esek atero mitzvahs, as a result of the bitul hayesh, that is engaged, that is part and parcel of doing Torah mitzvahs, alidei zeh nasu keli, Thereby he becomes a keli. Because this is the whole requirement, that there has to be bottle love. If it's bottle love, then he can relate to it. Then that's what we said. What is in of an atzmi? What is in of an oir? That the oir states that this belongs to the atzmi, but there has to be a bottle. If it's not bottle, then it doesn't belong to him. If it doesn't belong to him, then he cannot be there, because he's an atzmi. He doesn't go any place. No?
I didn't hear that. What was the last part? Because Hashem is an Atzmi.
He's not going any place. Therefore, in order for him to be any place, that place has to be completely one with him, so that he sees himself there. Or it's seen the Etzer. You see the Etzer. See, the principle, we reiterate, and maybe it'll be a little bit more clear, but I think this is nothing new here. The sunlight reaches us millions of miles away from the sun. And we are pointing out that there is a clear distinction between that light which hits the object, the energy part, and the fact that the union from sunlight per se. Sunlight does not reach millions of miles away. It is the sun itself that's millions of miles away. And that is what light is. Light is that statement that the sun is an atzmi. And what does that statement mean? That's what it means. An atzmi is wherever he is, it transforms everything to be like he is. And that's in your voice. Like fire. Anything that is in proximity to the fire will be consumed by the fire. And it can only be consumed with the fire if it is in proximity to the fire. It's bottled.
So it's the bittul. It's the bittul of the kli which is responsible for eliciting. When we said before that the kli wants the air, that's it's being bittul is that, so to speak, that statement of wanting air.
Right. That's what the point. Bottle Ayin love is one of the here doesn't want oil. So he don't want
wants the mire.
Wants the mire. Like in our marshal, you don't want the meal, you want the host.
We don't want the light, we want day or the sun. We don't just want light.
No, that's right. And thus, when the beetle is greater, the greater the beetle is, then it becomes a keli more suitable for the oil. Therefore, according to this, Yesh Leimar, we can further put another notch in this whole principle. The Ravad Zois, that in addition to the fact that as a result of Torah, the oil in Gilu is Nimshach. Hepech Tivei Lalois Kanal, which is the opposite of its nature. The nature of oil is Lalois, is to rise to the source. And the Torah has the effect that it is Nimshach Lamata. In addition to that, Hine, על ידי זה גורמים כלולוס עניין המשוחס האויר. But as a result of Torah, the whole principle that there is such a thing as Amshochas Ha'oir is created as a result of Torah. Going in closing Amshochas Ha'oir. One is that it's Nimshach Gilui, that it should be Gilui, which is Hepech Tiba, and then the whole inyan that there should be Amshochas Ha'oir is also to the Torah. I'm going to try and point out one of these two things a little bit more clearly. Al dei ater nimshach ha'oir v'hagilui hepech tiboy lanus. And then he says, Al ezen yod min klolusin hamshachas ha'oir. What are these two things? Klolusin hamshachas ha'oir and hamshachas ha'oir v'hagilui. Hamshachas ha'oir v'hagilui is easier for us to relate to. The gilui of oir is that it takes a defining presence. Like for example, it's a mitzvah in the Torah. Is a gilui of the principle of the Shoyles and Shomes Yisrael, but in the Shomes side. This gilui this gilui of that truth comes as a result of the mitzvahs HaTorah. Al dei HaTorah. Somebody has not muted their phone, and we beg you please do that. Then there's another inyan. Klolos Hamshachas Ha'oir is
Brother Paltiel, I'm sorry.
Oh, my battery is dying.
I'll call him.
That's right.
Okay.
Lately, this is. I used up my battery.
The phone wasn't designed for such deep content.
It got saturated. Can't take it anymore.
Which came?
Beis phone.
The battery on Rabbi's phone is burned out. Here, I'm going to put you on speakerphone, okay?
Is he the only one on?
Were there others on? Should I call the conference room?
Yeah, call it conference.
Yeah. Do you have auto dial for conference?
Oh, you don't have.
Okay, but Yehuda's going to auto dial into the conference room, okay? We're going to call back in. Okay, hey, how's the live broadcast right now? Okay.
Tom? Huh?
It'll be on in a second. Oh, speaker.
How do I?
It's dialing in.
I know, where's the.
Welcome to the conference
There's a
room.
need right now driving in.
No, I need the phone.
No, it's going to do it all.
At the
Going
tone,
to the
please
phone?
thank you. You are now entering the conference room. To exit the conference room, press **. For help, press
Anonymous.
*9.
Yeah.
You are participant number 3.
All right, we're back on.
Okay, that's great. Boy, that's a really good example of Helen Hester. So I just missed the point about this first level and its connection to Abbas Yisrael. That's what I was asking.
All right, Abbas Yisrael is a gilui of the principle of the source of Neshamas Yisrael. While all Neshamas are sourced together in one in the Elokus. Abbas Yisrael is the gilui of that, and the gilui of that comes through Torah and mitzvahs. But we're saying the second Indian, that mitzad ha'etzem, he doesn't express himself at all. Mitzad ha'etzem, there will be no gilui oir at all. No oir. Hamshachas ha'oir. Let us take a mashal, a metaphor for this, and understand this a little bit closer by. A mashal for etzem. Now etzem, the only etzem, the real etzem is only atzmos holocaust. All mishalim that we have for etzem is what's called a subset. It's etzem for this, like the sun is etzem behiri. As you said, it's called etzem behiri. It's not the etzem. The union of light is through and through in its presence. It's not an etzem. Nevertheless, there is a tzad and Eibishter created the world. He brought himself into the world and brought the inyanim atzmi into the world. One inyan atzmi in the world is the human being. Human being is Eibishter's handiwork, and he represents Tzelem Elokim. Nas Odom B'Saminikim Musay. He presents Tzelem Elokim so that he has an inyan atzmi. Like we always point out, the human presence in the world is not functional dependent. The person is not capable of doing anything. As long as he's alive, he's a full-fledged human being. It's not the etzem presence. Wasn't that human being? The human being is an atzmi. Because a human being is an atzmi, this is why, we point out, this is why a human being has an etzem, he can own property. Own property is an atzmius element. In other words, he doesn't have to hold the property in his hand. He doesn't have to use it even. This is my property, and he automatically spreads it. That's the oil of the human being. His presence. Now, in the case of the human being, the principle of owning property, the principle of having a home, like it says, Odom shein lebayis ein lo odom. Having a home is something which is imperative for the human being. He is complemented. In other words, he has to have this oil. Without this oil, he is not fully a human being. Odom shein lebayis ein lo odom. Because, like we say, we always give a person who is born at Adam, a child who is born at Adam, he is born, we give him a name. Because what is really the atzmis of the human being? Not that he is unto himself. His presence in the world is a different atzmi. Nas odom b'salmenikit museinu. What did the pasuk say? Nas odom b'salmenikit museinu. V'yirdu b'tgazayom u'v'yivashamayim. He will rule the world. he has an atzmius rulership over the world, but he's part of the world. In terms of his being a part of the world, he has an atzmi presence. Like the sun has an atzmi presence of light. So that if the human being should not have oil, then he is like another human being. He could be without oil. There's an interesting phenomenon in halacha. As we say that a human being is not functionally dependent, right? He's not functionally dependent. If he's not well, or he's on the last moments of his life, the world stands on this human being. There is a state in a human being where he's stuck in not a human being. An avid. An avid is mamish not a human being. He got all the functional capabilities. He doesn't have anything. B'nei mi hashivcha, a person has a son from a shivcha, it's not b'nei. Not a b'choy, it doesn't have any effect on the person's life. If a person has 10 children from a shivcha, he's not yoytze the mitzvah of pruruhu. Ela yachis. It's a human being. What is the pshat in that? This is exactly the pshat. The human being is not what he is built of, because of he is built, he has a head and 2 feet. And he has his capabilities. It is his place in the world. And if he doesn't have an independent place in the world, he's an avid, doesn't have any place, so then he doesn't have that full-fledged statement of a presence of a human being. So here we have a situation from this we can have the mashal to understand that in the case of the human being, to have oil is imperative. The minute you take away the oil, he's no longer that entity. But when he has oil, it's oil. It represents an inyan atzmi. Like we said, the person owns his property. He owns his property. He may be thousands of miles away. And unless he transfers the property, it remains his forever. This is the way. This is in the Metzius in the world, because there is no real atzmus. It's atzmus, the true atzmus. The whole Ayin of Oyer doesn't need to be there. Hamshachas ha'oyer is due to Torah mitzvahs. Otherwise, there is no Hamshachas ha'oyer. This is why, in fact, Rosh Hashanah, we are soliciting that the Rebbe should be melech, and it says that this solicitation is such that you are soliciting that it should be a will to be melech. Otherwise, there's no malchus at all. It reverts back to a place where there is no malchus whatsoever. So this is what he says over here. Of is that the Atir Nimshach O'er v'Hagilu Hepech Tiv, that the Eir should be Nimshach Lamato Begilui, which is Hepech Tiv, which is Lalos, and then Al Deizeh Goy Min Klolos Inyan Hamshachas O'er. The whole thing that there is oil is due to Torah mitzvahs. This is what it says, that what was the initial that And the initial thought in terms of the Megala Elokus is because there was a Torah mitzvah, Torah Yisrael. If not for that, there would be no Gilui at all. No Hamshochas Oyer. This is what we're going to learn later on about the Rebbe decided to have Oyer. The Hidden is by Liyil.
That was the Eivishter's choice that came from
Okay,
the
our time is up, I think. That's the correct time? I guess so.
I guess
It's 10:30. That's quick.
Yeah, what happened to your
What
clock?
does it say? What does it say?
10:40.
10:50.
That's probably the time of the call.
Oh, it's time with the call. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong
Keep
thing.
going, 10:51.
10:30. Okay. All right. All right. So this is it for today. Yeah.
Here it's there. The Eibishter was the one deciding to have Or. Here, it's being drawn from Torah. The same thing.
Yes. The Rebbe should decide to have oil, as we're going to learn, whatever
Through Torah.
because of projection of Torah. Torah preceded the whole. All right. This is what? This is an iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's probably a bigger, stronger Kaylee for the shoe.
All right. Sei gesund. Have a good day.
If you put this one too close, it's gonna eat that one.
1, 2, 3. Brother, keep your head up. I know you're fed up, but the Jews got the move. Lech lecha, don't let up. Things get in the way to discern. Ooh, thank you, Tati, for letting me learn, letting me earn, and taking my turn. I know you know one day I'll return. Ooh, the favor's deserved, 'cause of your word, even kinder than mom and you I prefer, over and above the world. Oh, I won't fade away, 'cause the very next day, back in strength and here to stay.